Hi, I'm John Davison, co-founder of CodeUnion.io. This video tutorial will demonstrate how to install and configure Exorcism.io in the Cloud9 browser-based development environment. In order to follow this tutorial, you need to have an account at github.com and also at Cloud9 If you don't have either of these, please go ahead and visit those sites and register before proceeding. Let's get started by logging into Exorcism.io using our GitHub account. Once we've logged in, now let's head to Cloud9 and log in as well. The first thing that we're going to want to do is create a new workspace. Let's call this Exorcism. And let's just use the custom template. This should take a moment to spin up the new virtual machine. Now, once the virtual machine is ready, let's go ahead and start editing. Let's go ahead and close this window and open up a new terminal. And let's go ahead and collapse the workspace tab. The first thing that we are going to want to do is we need to download the Exorcism.io installation script. If you're curious, I'm using the Exorcism.io's documentation for the Linux install, the links of which are provided in this tutorial. Now let's go ahead and verify that the install script downloaded. That looks good. Now we need to change the permissions of the install script to make it executable. chmod +x install, and let's verify that that command worked. Notice our install script is now executable, indicated by the permissions on the left, -rwx, r-x, r-x, and also note that install, the file name now appears in green with an asterisk by it, which is Unix speak for this file is executable. Let's go ahead and run the install script. When you're prompted with install client into and a path, push enter. And let's go ahead and verify that Exorcism installed correctly by typing exorcism-v. Perfect, Exorcism version 1.7.4. If Exorcism didn't install correctly, please repeat the previous steps until you are confident that you have installed Exorcism correctly. In case you can't figure out how to make things work, please email us stuck@codeunion.io if you have any trouble, but make sure that Exorcism has properly installed before proceeding. Now that we've successfully installed the Exorcism command line toolkit, let's go ahead and fetch some new exercises. In order to do that, we need to make a few preparation actions. So let's go ahead and make directory exercises. This is the actual directory where our Exorcism.io exercises will live. And let's verify that this directory has been properly made by typing ls. Notice we now have a directory called exercises. One thing we're going to need to do is visit exorcism.io for our configuration key. So we need to tell the exorcism command line tool that our API key is set to, let's head in and check our account. Of course, I will change my API key after this tutorial, but notice here, exorcism.io/account, as long as you're logged in, Exorcism will display your API key. Let's head back into our session. Exorcism configure -- key equals paste in your API key, push enter. That looks good. And now we want to configure the exorcism command line tool to know where we actually will be storing our exercises. So exorcism configure -- dir equals ~workspace/exercises. Perfect, that all looks good. So now we're ready to actually fetch exercises from the exorcism.io server, which we can fetch with exorcism.fetch. Okay, that looks good. Now we want to verify that we got the Ruby hamming exercise, because that's what I'll be finishing this tutorial with. Now, in case you're wondering, you might have, when you type exorcism fetch, you might not get this entire list of files. Don't worry about that. The list of files that you receive from the server may vary depending on what stage you're at in your skills progression with the exorcism.io path. Anyways, ls exercises/ruby/hamming. What I'm looking for is hamming_test.rb, which is in there. That looks good. The next thing that we're going to do is complete a code problem. Let's go ahead and since exorcism is based on the display of a challenge in the README file, which we can verify by looking at that, and we can look at our actual code. Well, it's not actually code, it's a test file. This is a Ruby mini test. And what we need to do is actually create a file that will house our soon-to-be written Ruby code. And you want to touch exercises/ruby/hamming, hamming.rb. Make sure not to deviate on the file name hamming.rb, of which I will explain why as we look through the test file. So let's verify that we have hamming.rb, which we have, which is now an empty file. So let's go ahead and navigate inside the Cloud9 IDE to our new Ruby file. Here we are, hamming.rb. And actually, let's look at the test file real quick. So the way exorcism works is that exorcism supplies you with a statement or a problem in a README file, right? You can read through the hamming challenge on your own. It's a very interesting challenge, actually. And then exorcism gives the user a bunch of mini test conditions. And you write your code, and you know that your code satisfies the project when you can run your test suite and the tests all pass. And these tests, whether or not you realize it or not, are actually running the code that we will write in our hamming.rb file. As I said earlier, it's very important that you use the file hamming.rb, as the test file is requiring a hamming file. If you have questions again on how this Ruby is structured, reach out to us stuck at CodeUnion.io and we'll try to sort you out and get you on your way. Anyways, jumping back into hamming.rb, since this screencast is not meant to be a tutorial on how to use Ruby itself, I'm just going to paste in my own answer to the hamming exercise. Let's go ahead and save this. And now we want to actually go ahead and run the test file. And we can do that by heading back to our terminal. Let's collapse our file tree. And we can type Ruby exercises, Ruby hamming test.rb. And notice that the output of this command, we know there were 9 tests, there was 1 assertion, and 0 failures. So we know there are 9 tests, but only 1 was actually run. 8 tests were skipped. So Exercism structures the test files a little bit like a test-driven development environment. Clearly, some of these different tests have been written, but you, the coder, get the opportunity to go through and remove the skip statements so that you can watch your code progressively become more effective. Let's go ahead and rerun our test suite. Now we know that 3 assertions were made with no failures and 6 tests were skipped. Let's go back into our code. Let's get rid of all the skips just so we can see what a complete, fully passing spec suite looks like. So I've removed all the skip statements, and I'm going to rerun the spec suite. Notice we have 9 tests, 9 assertions, which means all the tests were run, 0 failures, and 0 skips. This code is ready to rock. So the next thing, the step that you want to take with Exercism, is we actually want to submit our code to the Exercism server for feedback. There's a pretty straightforward command that we can run, exercism submit, and then pass a path to the file name as an argument to the command, exercism submit exercises Ruby hamming.rb. This will submit hamming.rb to the exercism server for review. Assuming everything went correctly, which appears as though it did, we will be returned a URL which we can visit in our browser that will show us our code on exercism.io. So here we are, exercism.io. Here's me, JC Davison. Here's the code that I just submitted. And now other members of the exercism.io community can add comments. And they can comment on the code, they can tell me things that make sense, they can help me improve, so on and so forth. Once we have submitted our code, if you want to get more code from Exercism, I don't know if there will be any more available to me right now, you can always type exercism fetch and we'll get new code. Okay, so in this situation there is no code for me to get, but you could see in a future situation this is how you might go about getting more code. So, at a very high level, that's a look at how to use the exercism.io command line tools inside the Cloud9 browser-based development environment. I'm John Davison, co-founder of CodeUnion.io. If you have any questions or anything was unclear in this tutorial, please reach out to us stuck at CodeUnion.io. Otherwise, happy coding.